On this episode of Jets Uncovered, with mandatory minicamp starting tomorrow, we're going to update the key positions and players to follow as the New York Jets get another opportunity to see key personnel up close and take note of who is making the biggest moves up the depth chart and who's falling. We'll get the conversation started with one of the most experienced Jets reporters in the New York market today as we go one-on-one with Randy Lang, senior consultant and reporter for NewYorkJets.com, as Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Radio Network starts now. It's Monday, June 11th, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma. Welcome to another edition of Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Radio Network at ourlads.com. All right, I'm going to welcome a longtime colleague I've known since my radio days in South Florida. He's been covering Jets football for 29 consecutive seasons and has been the editor for the Jets Yearbook for 12 consecutive seasons. Randy Lang. Randy, it's great to talk New York Jet football with you again today.
Greg, it's great to be back, and I think we're all pretty excited right about now. We haven't seen the growth the last few years in the record, but I think we've seen it in the attitude, and I think hopefully Jet fans are starting to feel it because I know the team is feeling pretty excited about what's coming this year.
Yeah, this is definitely, you get the feeling we're ready to go through some good times again. It's been a while. Of course, it seems like a long time since the Rex Ryan back-to-back championship seasons, and it has been. And I think sometimes you as Jet fans, the stigma comes attached that you have to deal with, like when you watch the draft shows. I mean, do we always have to watch 1979, how terrible the Jets draft situation was back then, and how ridiculous. I mean, it's a budding joke and all of that, and we get it, but this hasn't been that team or that franchise, I should say, for a long time. And really, up until like the Rex Ryan championship seasons, that stretch from Bill Parcells to then for Jet fans was actually pretty good.
Yeah, it was, and you're right. It was too long ago because Rex Ryan came in and got the Jets to the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row, 2009, 2010, and the Jets have not been back to the playoffs since then. So that's 4 more years under Rex and 3 years under Todd Bowles. So that is starting to obviously play into it. And yeah, you're right. I don't know what it is about the Jets. Maybe every team that doesn't win is going to be a punching bag for a while. We're still hearing about the butt fumble on ESPN, and I'm sure there's a few other, as you mentioned, a few draft choices that drove people crazy. The Blair Thomas thing didn't work out, and I mean, we'll go through the list, but let's not. But it's just it's the one thing that will change that, obviously, is winning, and everybody knows that.
Yep.
And I think one thing that really bothers Jets fans most of all is, we've been waiting, we've been patient, but other teams are passing us by. I mean, Jacksonville all of a sudden is a dynamo. Buffalo even gets to the playoffs before we do again. And, we go through the list of those teams. And the Jets fans just want to see some progress. And they want to see it in the record, and they want to see it on the field. And I know that Todd Bowles is very concerned about that, and that's what he's gearing up for. And what Mike Maccagnan has, his front office is building for is something that can be sustained. And but for it to be sustained, we got to get it started, and this is the time to start it.
Yeah, and that's why this is a great opportunity for me and the network to be able to bring you in. And, of course, again, you've been with the organization, following the organization for a while. Then you've been with the organization now for, the last 10 years now? Or how long have you actually been working with the organization?
Yeah, I moved over to the Jets in 2007, so this will be the 12th season that I'll be embedded, as we might say. And that, of course, is a different role than I used to have in newspapers and covering the team as a beat writer. because we're not going to go into a lot of the hot button issues because we're just not going to go that route. I mean, that's something that the mainstream media can handle, and they'll talk about it, and they'll ask those tough questions, and that's not what the team wants, and so that's not what we provide the fans. But what we do provide them, we try to provide them an honest look at what's happening on the depth charts and what's happening in the different areas of the team. Be it in the meeting rooms or the training room or the strength room or the weight room, in the locker room. All of these venues, are areas that we're going to keep an eye on for fans and try to give a nice even spin on it. But it's going to be a positive spin as long as we can make it positive and tell fans what's ahead for the organization.
Yeah, look, there is a difference between you and I, and there will be a difference between you and I doing any shows, and that is, of course, when you work for the organization, you are going to have a certain, like anybody would, a certain slant. You're also going to, of course, try to keep things as for real as you can. But look, I mean, that's just the way it is. It's just a fact of life. For me, I have a little bit more of a luxury to say whatever comes to my mind. But as we talked about off the air, I mean, I have been one of the very few Jet media people that has especially followed them recently over the past year or two, and just even going back to the beginning of the season last year. All through the season, that was mainly positive. And I know it took, and I still think at this point there's still a lot of the people who have followed the team from last year with all the success that they actually had. And I'm not talking about wins and losses, but everybody was thinking the Jets were going to be the 0-16 team, not the Cleveland Browns. So we didn't really trash the team, nor do I ever trash the team to trash the team. Try to be honest with exactly what I see, and a lot of the times I find myself being completely opposite to what you get from the regular beat guys covering the team. And I just think because in general, especially if the team's struggling, a lot of the beat guys, I mean, maybe they feel like they have to trash the Jets organization in order to get people, for clicks and things of that nature. I don't believe that that's the case. That, to me, maybe that's just an old way of thinking. But it's also been one of the things that the Jets organization has had to deal with when competing with the Giants. It just seems that the Giants usually get the benefit of the doubt a lot easier than the Jets organization has. But again, the bottom line is that I think it's very important that when you follow the team to be as honest as you can about what you see, and I think over the years it's up to the fans then when they're reading writers and their stories following the Jets and their opinions, or broadcasters on the radio, guys that are covering the team on a daily basis. If you can demonstrate that you're going to be fair and you're not going to be biased and you're also going to be right more than you're wrong, then you've done your job. And I'm very proud of how I've handled that over the years. And that's why bringing you on is going to be great for what we're trying to do here, because I think we want a much bigger reach. And I think that what we're going to be doing is going to be so different to what you generally get in the New York market, listening to Jet shows and reading a lot of what you are normally used to reading. So I'm pretty proud of that, but it's great to have you on board.
I appreciate that, and I'll just say this, Greg. I mean, I know that you're that kind of guy. That's why, I like to come on with you, because you're going to be, cruel but fair. We want to be cruel but fair. But anybody who hasn't visited NewYorkJets.com or come to our Twitter feeds or the Facebook Jets page, drop in and take a look around if you're a Jets fan. We're going to be positive, but I promise you this: we're not going to sugarcoat anything either, because that's the quickest way to lose fans, to lose clicks, and to go downhill in this current cutthroat market. And we're trying to make our own way, and we are making our own way and doing quite well amidst all of the negativity and just all the noise. And we're trying to present our team view in as positive a light as we can, but without sugarcoating it. And that's my promise to anybody who hasn't seen the site yet. Come on over and take a look around. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, tell fans a little bit about Jets 360. What is Jets 360?
Well, Jets 360 came into being over the last several years. I think we branded it last year that way, but it's the multimedia wing of the operation and the business offices of the Jets. And so that, I think primarily you think of Jets 360, you're thinking of video. You're thinking of all of the clips that we put up on the site, whether they're, practice videos, highlights of the practices, and we'll do a lot of that. Or maybe it's interviews with, my good friend, longtime associate Eric Allen, who is really kind of the voice of Jets 360 in the Jets right now, along with Bob Wischusen, who does the game broadcasts. But Eric Allen will do a lot of interviews. Olivia Landis, Ethan Greenberg. And we have very talented people who are conducting interviews with all the players and getting the best out of them. We go on remotes with the team, with the players, whether it might be, visiting them at their homes and doing a, cribs type of show, or, going hunting or fishing with them. I think Ethan Greenberg's got some things lined up with some of the players there. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that we do our own local New York TV production.
Okay.
So you have the program on Jets on Saturday night at 11:35.
Oh.
And then you have the Jets pregame show that's on. These are both on WCBS TV out of New York.
Okay.
But we're producing those shows. That is not the WCBS that's producing them.
All right.
We've taken that over a long time ago. So
okay.
Those are all examples of our work. It's good work.
All right. Well, anytime I bring on a new guest to the network or someone that hasn't been on for a while, I always want to get the pleasantries out of the way, the intros, the promos. And now that all of that's done, Randy, and we've gotten it all out of the way, now the rest of our time together, it's going to be, let's go right into it. Let's get into the meat of the show. Let's talk about everything going on with the New York Jets, player, team, coaches, everything. Let's start, first of all, with the quarterback situation. That is the big story. I'll tell you, going into free agency and the draft, I actually said that I had hoped that the Jets were going to sign Teddy Bridgewater, and I wanted to re-sign Josh McCown, and I actually thought the Jets were going to get Baker Mayfield, and I was fine with that because nobody at that time thought Baker Mayfield was going to go number one, and I was like, you know what, let's get Baker Mayfield, Teddy Bridgewater, McCown, and I'm going to be happy with that. And then it looked like it was all going to come true until, of course, the last couple of days of the draft. Not that I'm not happy with Sam Darnold and everything sounds good, but I also said that I truly believe, let's start with Teddy Bridgewater, I truly believe that, and I said this a couple of months ago when they signed him, that as long as he's healthy and they are going to be fair and give Bridgewater and Darnold, and it's going to be a true competition between the three quarterbacks, and they're not going to favor McCown because of what he did last year in seniority, that Teddy Bridgewater will be the starting quarterback week one. Because look, it's obvious. He's younger. I saw what he did when he played, and he took this team, the Vikings, to a playoff. The talent that he had in college, all of that said to me, well, hey, I mean, this as long as he picks up the offense and he's healthy, I mean, he's what? I don't even know. He's what, 10, 15 years younger than McCown? I mean, come on. I think he should be the starting quarterback week one. And I'm starting to hear very positive news out of camp so far about the fact, of course, practices, the fact that he looks healthy. There doesn't look like there's any issues at all health-wise with him. He's zinging the ball around the field, and that's making me more and more confident that if he keeps doing that and progressing, that I think he could be the week one starter.
That's a good observation, Greg, because I think you're right on. From what you're hearing, I'm hearing and seeing the same things. Teddy Bridgewater is one of the big stories of the OTA period as we head into the mandatory full squad minicamp beginning tomorrow. He has looked good. His knee injury does not seem to have hindered him. He is throwing well on the run and throwing tight spirals and all the things you want to see out of a veteran who's going to compete for a starting job. Now, can he unseat Josh McCown? I'm sure that that's what he's thinking, and Josh is thinking the same thing. And basically, it's you get to that stage of your career, it's all about competition. I want to win the job, but whatever happens whatever's decided by the coaches, that's what they decide, and then I'm here for the team. And that's exactly what Josh McCown has said. And so you have those two veterans, and as you know, Christian Hackenberg was traded to the Raiders, and Bryce Petty was waived, and he's now with the Dolphins. And so we've cleared the deck, basically, for Josh and for Teddy and for Sam Darnold. And Sam was the third pick of the draft. He was my second pick on my value board. I liked, actually, Baker Mayfield. I thought he was a really good fit for the Jets.
Yep.
But I was okay with Sam.
Sure.
And the Joshes I was not as great, not as happy about. And so I'm glad that they went elsewhere, and we're going to play them. And we'll see over the coming years, when they run into the Bills and Josh Allen and the Cardinals and Josh Rosen, who was a better pickup. But I think what Sam has shown so far that he's a learner. He's focused. He just turned 21.
Yeah.
And yet he's very mature. He's got a great attitude about him in the locker room. He's human. He talks to the people, the writers who come up and ask him all manner of questions. But he's very focused about what he needs to do, what he wants to do. And I'm very happy with his progress so far. And I think he's going to make a really good 3-on battle as we go down the stretch in August and head towards the opening day in Detroit.
Talk about the possibility of Teddy Bridgewater being traded, because we're hearing, if Bridgewater plays well during camp and there's a team out there that has a quarterback injury, that the Jets might trade Teddy Bridgewater like the Eagles traded Sam Bradford, and maybe they could acquire a pretty high draft pick for it. Do you think, what kind of credence do you give to that possibility, knowing that in order for that to happen, you would think that Sam Darnold would probably have to play really well, that they would count on if they started McCown and let's say he got hurt or something, and then they'd feel confident that they could go right to Sam Darnold and it wouldn't stunt his growth or anything like that, because you're just not going to trade Teddy Bridgewater to just accumulate a pick, not at this stage of their rebuilding, and I'm sure that they want to go out there and win games and make the playoffs this year too. So what do you think about that possibility actually happening if Teddy Bridgewater looks as good as he can look? Do you think the Jets would be like, hey, you know what? No, we're keeping him. We want to start him. We want to get to the playoffs, and he's looking like a playoff quarterback? Or do you think they go ahead and try to trade him off to get a first or second round draft pick?
Well, we've all heard that talk, and that certainly makes a lot of sense if that's how great that Teddy's proceeding on into the offseason and the early start of the preseason. I think he probably needs to show what he's got in the first couple of preseason games before anybody starts to salivate and say, hey, we'll give you this, that, and the other thing to trade for him. I don't, the Jets certainly have not broached that subject at all, as you would expect.
Sure.
They picked him up because they wanted to add him to the roster, and it's a fluid thing, and so we're going to go forward with the 3 quarterbacks in that room, and whatever happens down the road happens. But I would say that certainly looks like a possibility if Sam Darnold comes along as he seems like he could. He looks like like I said, he's picking up the pro game really well. He's already shown an improvement over turnovers. That the one negative I think that bothered him at USC was the interceptions and the
turnovers.
fumbles.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
And he did a few of those on the first couple of rookie minicamp practices. He hasn't been doing that quite as much, and I can tell you that when he throws a pick, which is not often anymore, but in team drills, if he throws an interception, he's not too happy about it. And I kind of like that. It's not like, this is preseason, and we'll take care of that down the road. It's more of I don't like that, and I want to get it fixed. And I'm really happy that I'm here in this room with McCown and Bridgewater, who know what they're looking at and what I'm looking at to help me get over this, because I don't want to do that anymore. So I like that approach that Sam is taking.
Okay.
If he can show that progress all the way through, on into training camp, we know what McCown brings to the table. Yeah, I'd say it's a possibility. And then, of course, you're not looking at having traded 3 number 2 picks for Sam Darnold.
That's true. Yep.
But you maybe only traded 2 number 2s, and you get back who knows what. I don't even know what the market would be for Teddy right now. I can't think that it would be a 1 or even maybe a 2, but, we'll see. if a team is desperate at that time and thinks that Teddy Bridgewater is the key to their puzzle, going to the playoffs or whatever, and their quarterback goes down, maybe that's the answer for them, and maybe the Jets do make out in that respect. But right now they've got a three-headed quarterback situation.
Yeah, and I for one would really. I mean, I think Sam Darnold would have to look so good and so ready to start on week one. Not saying that they would do it, but he would have to look like he's prepared to start week one for them to give up Teddy Bridgewater for anything less than a second round or even a late first. If I'm Mike Maccagnan, because I just that would be the equation for me. Otherwise, I think if they're not sure Sam's ready, then by no means, unless you're getting a deal you can't refuse, am I giving up on Teddy Bridgewater and just feeling like Josh McCown can lead me to the postseason? Because I think at this stage, I mean, this is an organization. I mean, we've seen the last few years in the AFC with the Dolphins and the Bills making the postseason and not looking very good when they've gotten there, that there's a possibility to get to the playoffs this year if everything goes right with this team this season. And I don't think that you just necessarily trade away Teddy Bridgewater to trade him away if you don't think Sam Darnold's ready and Josh McCown winds up getting hurt.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I believe that's how the Jets are looking at it. And whatever their conversations in private are, I don't think that they're, looking for that team to suddenly dish Teddy off again, because I think they're intrigued. The coaches are intrigued, and the teammates are intrigued by what he might be able to bring to the table. So, as of right now, we're going full speed ahead with three guys, and we'll see how that shakes out in August. Anything can happen, as you know, Greg.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a long way to go for any of that possibility to occur based on performance, injuries, etc. Okay, let's let's get into the wide receivers. A lot to go on here. No question, the Jets, Maccagnan, they have done a tremendous job building up the depth at this receiving core over the last several years. It had to be one of the worst receiving cores. It just seemed like yesterday it was. I remember when Geno was throwing the ball and that rookie season when he was out there, he had the worst receiving core, I think, in the history of Jet football. So they've done a really good job. Now, they still don't own it, I believe, of a number one. And I'm not sure there's a legitimate number one star on this team. But they have a lot of other really good possible number twos, and that's what I'm really excited about. Talk, first of all, about, let's start at the top with Robbie Anderson, because he's been dealing with a lot of baggage off the field. He's got to keep himself clean, right? I mean, even if something were to happen again and it's not his fault and it goes away, they can't even wait anymore for that. I mean, he just has to stay out of trouble anymore, right?
I would agree. He's already got 2 strikes in the sense that he's had 2 separate incidents where he's been arrested. We don't know if the league is going to do anything regarding suspension or not. Certainly not asking them to look into that if they haven't. But whatever happens, Robbie has shown that in his first 2 years in the league, he's a very dynamic and exciting young talent, and that's pretty amazing to say for a free agent out of Temple.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's got good size, he's got excellent speed, and he can catch the long ball. And you would certainly think that Josh McCown showed that he could find him.
Yep.
And you would think that Sam Darnold could find that, could find him a few times that way. I think he's hit a few long balls in the OTAs already with Robbie. So that's all a good thing. But, Robbie needs to focus on football and stay away from the distractions and the nightlife. And he should be okay then. And but, yeah, I think he's got a short leash probably. Because why wouldn't he?
Yeah, good. That's what I hope.
Those kind of issues going on with your players. And the Jets have had a few of them, as we've noted, over the course of time, the last couple of years. And so Todd Bowles is aware of that, too. And he knows that this is something that he needs to keep an eye on, too.
All right. Now, quickly, let's just go through the other injuries and then what you think about whether or not, as long as there's no other setbacks, whether or not these guys are going to be ready to go for training camp. Quincy Enunwa.
Well, Quincy seems to be ready to go. His neck injury from last preseason seems to have healed, and he's out running around and catching the ball. Of course, no pads yet, so that's going to be a big tell come late July and in August to see how he puts up with all that. But he's very eager to return to the game. He was a very interesting and sometimes dynamic player, especially yards after the catch when he was healthy and He helped to burn the Patriots back in 2015 and made a couple of long ball plays in 16 that were just eye-opening. And so he's a guy. I mean, some people talked about him as is he a one? Is he somebody who's ready to step up into that role as a number one? That's a long step for him. But we'll see. He definitely has the skill, and he looks like he's healthy and could return to full activity this year.
All right, and let's talk about Terrell Pryor. Foot ankle injuries. You think he's going to be ready?
I think so. He picked that up. I mean, he came to the Jets from the Redskins for 1 year where he had some issues, and I don't believe this is the same issue, the same ankle, but he's been sidelined a little bit during the OTA. So I don't know how much we're going to see of him in this minicamp, but I think he's going to be okay for training camp. We'll find out a little bit more as we go along. Todd Bowles is not going to volunteer a whole lot of injury information until he has to, which is really not even training camp as much as regular season. But right now he's playing it very close to the vest on these things. So the best I can say is I think that Terrell is going to be okay. If he is, that's a good addition. That's one of the reasons why the Jets wide receiving core looks a lot better than it did back in those Geno Smith days that you referenced, because of the talent. Maybe they need to find the number one, but they have a lot of guys who will be vying for that, and will be able to fill in at the number two role.
All right. By the way, just so you know, the sound on your end is fluctuating a lot, so I'm not sure if you're. That's better, but just so you know. All right, Devin Smith. That's just a freak injury kind of thing that sometimes several. Sometimes players you just have bad luck. I mean, Kevin White's dealing with it in Chicago. You don't have it in college; it happens to you in the pros, and that's just the way life is. So, any chance that anything we get from him now is a bonus. So, what are the chances that we see him in the preseason?
Well, I think the chances are good. I know Devin has spoken to some reporters and is very optimistic, very bullish on, he may not have seen me a lot the last 3 years, my first 3 pro seasons, but you're going to see something ahead. Now, that's good talk. You want to hear that, but you want to see the production. If he can produce the little we saw of him in training camp and a very small slice of, regular season activity, he looked very promising. And, he's got some speed, and he's another guy who's a part of that wide receiver depth chart that is very intriguing if everybody can stay healthy and, come together as a unit. So I'm optimistic that we will see something from Devin, but, you can't count on it because the guy really has had trouble 3 seasons staying healthy and getting on the field, and he's still rehabbing, I think, a little bit the knee injury that sidelined him last year. So we need to see more from you, Devin. God bless, and hope you get out there and show us what you're all about.
All right. Now, quickly, Chad Hansen, 4th round last year. Darius Stewart, 3rd round last year. Hansen looked better than Stewart last year. There's a buzz around Hansen this year. I'm not surprised by that at all. I loved what I saw out of Hansen in limited time last year. I think the Jets have a keeper in Hansen. Not sure about Stewart yet, but you know what? I think with the depth now the Jets have at receiving, I think the Jets should try Stewart as often as possible as far as punt return, kick return, see what he can do. He's not that valuable yet that you can't put him out on special teams. So put him out on special teams. Jets need to battle. I'm sure there's a big battle going on there with the return games. The Jets haven't had a good return game in quite a bit of years now. So, but the bottom line is Chad Hansen certainly looks like he's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I spoke to Chad a few weeks ago, and he's very happy with how he's entered year 2. He admits, year 1 is tough, to come into the league and kind of get your bearings and learn a new playbook that's a lot more complicated than anything you had at Cal or down the line. And so he did struggle to get action early on. He did play, but really did not start participating much on offense until about game 10. And then he started to make some catches and some clutch catches, and not a lot, but just enough to whet your appetite and whet his appetite. And so now he's come out and he's had a number of very nice plays. I think he turned around Morris Claiborne on one play early in the OTA periods that caught a lot of got a lot of media attention. And he just says that he's just so much more comfortable. he's now at the position, at the point in his career where he knows the playbook. He doesn't have to think, he can react. And when you get to that point as a pro, you can become dangerous if you have those skills, and I think he's got them.
All right, let's go to the tight end position. Leggett, the fifth rounder from last year, dealing with the knee injury that cost him pretty much the whole season, going up against Chris Herndon, the fourth-round pick this year, who had the DWI recently. And then you've got Walford, the former Raider, battling it out more than likely against Tomlinson, Sterling, and Hodges for that third spot because barring an injury, we know that Leggett and Herndon are going to make this team. And I don't see the Jets carrying four tight ends. What do you think about Leggett and Herndon and some of the baggage that they're bringing in to the season, injury and the DWI?
Well, I think the best thing about Leggett, we can say, is that he's aware that this is a big opportunity for him to seize the bull by the horns. Austin Seferian-Jenkins had a real nice year last year, coming into his own, putting behind his personal demons, and really, he started out phenomenally. I mean, he was on Mickey Schuler pace among Jets tight ends, just as far as receiving goes. He tailed off after that, but he still had a very solid season, and then converted that into a free agency deal, I think, with Tampa Bay. But now it's Leggett's turn. He was drafted. He learned behind ASJ, and now he knows that he's got a chance. We haven't seen a lot from him, but he's a big target. Most tight ends these days are 6'5", 258, and he's going to be able to show to Jeremy Bates, the new offensive coordinator, and to Todd Bowles, can he do this? Can he lead the tight end position and continue to lead that position back into some kind of prominence on the offense after it went away for 2 years in 2015 and 16? We never saw a tight end catch a ball, I don't think, in those 2 years.
All right. So, but you agree though, it's as long as Leggett and Herndon do their part, they're going to battle it out for first and second on the roster, and then it's between Walford, Tomlinson, Sterling, and Hodges for the final spot.
Yeah, I mean, Herndon, we haven't seen a lot from, so I don't know. I mean, he is supposedly another good receiver. I don't know about the blocking. I think Leggett is probably, because he has that extra year, a better blocker at this point. We know we've seen Sterling and Tomlinson last year, and they didn't play prominent roles, but they did play some roles, and they were good in their roles. And so, they've got an edge. Clive Walford came in, and I think he was with the Raiders.
Yeah.
And so now he's got a chance to make it with a new team and show that he belongs here. But, they're all kind of in that same, 255-pound range. We don't have any 240-pounders in that tight end group. And so they're all big targets, and they all have to show that they can block. And I think, like I said, Leggett might have an edge there, but he needs to show that he's serious about this. He's got a very good opportunity, and Herndon's going to be able to fight him off, or he's going to try to fight him off, and to get those reps at tight end.
All right, let's go to running back and Crowell, Powell, McGuire. That's a pretty solid trio right there. Then you bring in Rawls as a free agent, and Trenton Cannon is an interesting kid to keep an eye on as well. I could easily see the Jets, definitely with four running backs this year, if Rawls and Cannon do their part and make it hard for them, for the organization as far as the depth chart is concerned, especially if Rawls looks like he's more like the player from a couple of years ago, not last year. I know, of course, he had some injuries and such. But Cannon, his chance to make the team and not get stuck on the practice squad is going to be his ability to return kicks, right?
Absolutely. I think that's what caught the Jets' attention most, because he was an outstanding kickoff returner on the Division II level at Virginia State, and also an outstanding running back at that level. I think he had three 1,500-yard seasons rushing, and I think he's had three kickoff return touchdowns and high 20s average. All of those numbers very good. He looks the part. He looks like he might be that answer to the Jets' issues at trying to find consistent punt and kickoff return men, but we just don't know. I mean, he's got to prove it. But you're right. I think that's his ticket to a roster spot and to contributing on offense is, can he first contribute as the returner? Bilal Powell, gold standard. I think he's solid. He's a team player. We know we're going to get out of him. I like Isaiah Crowell, that pickup from Cleveland. I kind of like an Isaiah. I don't know if any of the real pro scouts would agree with this, but I kind of liken him to the player that Chris Ivory was when he came to the Jets, not what he was when he left or what he is now. But Crowell, he's a kind of a banger, 5'11", 225, but he has some quicks to him. He can make you miss, and once he makes you miss, you can get out there for that 50-yard run. Plus, Isaiah wants to be basically the feature back, the bell cow.
Yep.
He said he wasn't that in Cleveland. They had Duke Johnson was there, and so they split the rock there in Cleveland, and he never got that chance. Although he did have some 800-yard seasons, he wants to be the guy. And if they can find a nice balance between Crowell and Powell, and then mix in carries for Elijah McGuire, then they've got a pretty potent running attack. I like that part right now as far as being more established for the Jets offense than maybe the wide receivers and the tight end. The passing game, which is obviously very important, they still have to show that they've got the wherefore to make it. But I like what the Jets running backs room is shaping up as.
And Lawrence Thomas is going to have an uphill battle making the team this year. Almost by default, he made the team as the lone fullback. But now Dimitri Flowers comes in, and he's got a lot of experience, receiver, blocker, short yardage runner, everything that you're looking for. And they picked him up in free agency right after the draft. So as long as Flowers does a good job in training camp and over this mini camp period, he might make this team.
Yeah, I talked to Dimitri early on, and I like him a lot too. And I think Lawrence Thomas is a very interesting dude because he made the transition from fullback at one time, or running back in high school, early college, to defensive line, which is where he came to the Jets at, and then he moved back to fullback, and he's done a good job. But he's going to have his hands full trying to keep that job from Dimitri Flowers.
All right. And by the way, the kick return, punt return competition, we mentioned Cannon. I mentioned Stewart. We could throw McGuire in there.
Yes.
And then you've got Roberts, who has done a good, solid job over his career, but he's only a kick returner. He doesn't really provide much in the passing game, and I think that's going to be a problem for him making this team. And same thing with Lucky Whitehead. So that's why Cannon, McGuire, and Stewart, if they can mix and match those guys into the return game, that'll open up some roster spots and make it hard for Roberts or Whitehead to make the team.
Yeah, that's all very very astute, I think, Greg, because those are the guys I would have mentioned if we got there. Especially Lucky Whitehead seems to be. He got injured last year, so we never really saw him. But he did have some success with Dallas, and he might be that guy. Somebody's got to be that guy, Greg, because we've been waiting a long time to find the next Santana Moss, the next young Jeremy Curley at punt return, the next
Bobby Humphrey.
Bobby Humphrey. Joe McKnight at kickoff returns. God rest his soul.
Yep.
Was a phenomenal kickoff returner for about 2 or 3 years.
That's right.
We haven't had those consistent players for several years, and the return game still is a part of the NFL, although the powers that be seem to be trying to minimize that every year we go along with the rule changes and all. But as long as it's there, let's find that next guy who can break a few for us and get a touchdown. We haven't had a touchdown return for a long time either, since McKnight on kickoffs and since Curley on punt returns.
All right, offensive line. We know we know Beecham, Shell, Carpenter, Winters will probably make the team. Probably start. And then you've got Long, more than likely going to get to start at center as long as he's healthy. So what's the latest on him? Of course, he had the quad injury. He missed last year in Washington. They did bring in Swanson, but I think he's more of a free, he's a guy that's basically an insurance policy in case anything happens with Long. You have Harrison there as well. So this is about Long, though, being healthy, right?
Yeah, and I talked to Spencer this past week. We have a nice story up on the site just today on Spencer Long and Brent Foley, who were 5-year teammates at Nebraska, and now they've been reunited, and they're great buddies still, and now they're teammates and helping each other out and helping the Jets line with their little background with each other and making each other better players and helping everybody else become better. I like Spencer. He's a big, he's a thick guy. I mean, He only tips the scale at 318, only 318. But he's 6'5", and he looks like an impressive blocker. And he held the center job at Washington for pretty much 2 years, although last year he did exit early. He was a starting guard before that. So he's got that experience, and I think he's going to be the center. But Travis Swanson has that experience, too. He was also a guard center with the Lions and started at center. So they actually have two guys who are going to push each other. And not only will Qualley push Spencer. Qualley's not a center necessarily, but Travis Swanson may push him. And so that's all good for the line, too. And that's really the only, loose position, I guess.
Yeah.
You could say maybe Swanson, pushes, if let's say Carpenter were to get hurt. He's been very indestructible for 3 years with the Jets. Brian Winters has been hurt a bit, but he's a gamer when he's healthy, and he's healthy now. And then at tackle, Beecham looked solid last year, I thought. And Brandon Shell is going to be back, and we'll see if he's the right tackle of the future and if he can hold that position down. But they had experienced players on the line. Now they need to get that momentum and show that last year, was a learning year. It was an up and down year, but they did some very good things. Now they need to do a lot more good things. And even though obviously you're going to pass in today's NFL, there seems to be an emphasis on the run game with Jeremy Bates at offensive coordinator, with Rick Dennison, the new offensive line coach and run game coordinator. We have not had a run game coordinator on the Jets. I don't remember when we had one, if ever. He is the RGC. So they're going to try to run the ball in addition to getting the chunk plays down the field, passing it.
Okay.
So this will be a very important part of the Jets now and as they go through training camp, trying to build that consistency with the run game on the line and that running back.
Yeah, I'm also intrigued by the switch from a power scheme to a zone block scheme, which is what Rick Dennison's going to bring them, and I think that could also be very intriguing to follow how the offensive line gels together, and whether or not we see any of these guys perform better under this new scheme. And I'm also intrigued by Antonio Garcia, who's in camp. Let go by the Patriots. I'm also intrigued by a couple of guys that were rookie free agents. Well, one's a rookie free agent, Austin Golson, and the other was last year, Ben Braden. I think both of those guys, including Garcia, could battle for a spot on the roster versus Dozier, Ijalana, and Qualley, who you mentioned.
Yeah, Ben Braden is back, and you mentioned Garcia, who I think he was a second-round pick for the Patriots. They just gave up because he had an issue, an illness, and I guess he wasn't healthy, didn't pass the physical, but he looks like a good gamble, and he's going to get to show what he can do. And another guy who's a free agent, we didn't mention, is Dakota Shepley, and I don't know if he's got NFL licks in him, but he was, I think, the 5th overall draft pick of the CFL draft this year, and that was after playing Canadian rules football, up at the University of British Columbia. But he's down here now, and he's showing that he could adapt to the NFL game. And he's a very interesting athlete and a guy who's considered a pro prospect on 2 leagues. So we'll see if he can throw his name into the ring here.
Okay, sounds good. We'll keep an eye on all those players. On defense, of course, you got Leonard Williams, Steve McClendon, the Anderson trade. I really like. He is a player. If he stays healthy, is going to be a huge addition to that defensive line. And then Mike Pennell is also a player that is going to be getting a lot of reps. They re-signed him. He's hopefully through with some of the off-the-field stuff, so that's important. So what about a couple other players to keep an eye on? You got the 2 rookies, and then you also have, I think the most intriguing guy to me is Xavier Cooper, because you're talking about a guy that was a 3rd-round draft pick, and it just seemed like, this happens. It just seemed like it took him until he started playing with the Jets that he started making plays, and he looked like he belonged when he got into action last year.
He absolutely did, and these are all guys that you mentioned that intrigued me, and I talked to them over the course of last season or this year. Xavier Cooper definitely showed that he might have what it takes to stick around for a while, and yet he and Pennell and McClendon's a fixture obviously, and Leonard Williams we know is a potential Pro Bowler, but and he was one, but not last year. But we also have Nathan Shepard, and we got Foley Fatukasi, and those two guys are going to try to, they're draft picks, and they're going to try to come in and similar body shapes, sizes, 315-pound guys, 6'4", probably do slightly different things, but they're going to try to move in and recreate that defensive line, that impressive line at one time that had Mo Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson and Leo Williams as a rookie, and now only Leo is left standing in that group. So we're going to rebuild it with these new guys, and I'm optimistic. Obviously, Nathan Shepard has a great backstory from. He also has a Canadian background, but ended up at Fort Hays State Division II, which is where the Jets took him in the third round. So, he shows a lot of determination and intensity, and I'm optimistic for that group rebuilding itself from what it was back in 2015.
Yeah, and I think both the two draft picks and, of course, with the three veterans, Williams, McClellan, and Anderson, and if Cooper plays well, and, of course, with Pennell, it's going to really make the competition a lot better, and it's going to make things a little hard for guys like Simon, maybe even Chris Jones, to make this team. But that's a good thing. At linebacker, right now, what do you think? I mean, maybe the biggest question, you've got Jenkins, you've got Lee, and you've got Williamson. So the biggest question is who's going to be that fourth linebacker? And a lot of it's going to come down to Lorenzo Molden's health. But even then, he's got to get back into shape. It's going to be a long uphill battle. Maybe as long as he's healthy, we're still not sure if we're going to see him at his best until maybe mid-season or such. So the David Bass re-signing was nice. And then he brought in a bunch of other veterans, Minter, Neville Hewitt, Pierre Lewis. And then, of course, they have holdovers, Martin and Donahue. So there's a lot to work with there. But once again, another year goes by, and the Jets don't have one of those bona fide, 3-4 outside edge rushers.
Yeah, that seems to be an annual issue. And it would be great if Lorenzo Molden is that guy, almost in a similar boat to Devin Smith. He's the defensive Devin Smith.
Yep.
We've seen a little bit of him. He's shown some flashes, and yet last year he was gone for pretty much most of the year, and we keep waiting to see if he can be that guy. It would be great if he can turn it on off the edge. He has that potential. He showed it at Louisville, but Josh Martin was the guy who ended up there, I think, de facto, and he's a competent guy. I don't know that he's your edge rusher, but he can start if you need him to. But let's see all of these guys, again, come together like on offense at wide receiver and, different positions. I mean, that's what competition and what the off-season, preseason is all about. And we got to see which one of these guys steps to the floor. I'd like to see Lorenzo Molden be that guy.
Sure, we all would. And, of course, also Donahue, hopefully.
And Dylan Donahue, right.
Nice to see him get his act together. By the way, is it Pierre Louis or Pierre Lewis?
I haven't talked to him yet, so
okay.
I believe it's Pierre Lewis.
Okay, just checking.
Only because I don't think it's French as much as it is a hyphenated last name.
Okay, sounds good.
But I have to check that out, and I'll get back to you on it.
All right, and those guys will also add depth in the for special teams, having guys like
Absolutely.
Pierre Lewis, Hewitt, and Minter. That's how they're going to make the team, along with Josh Martin.
Exactly. There was quite a changeover from the backup linebackers, the Bruce Carters and the Julian Stanfords of last year. Those guys, even Coney Ely was a defensive lineman, but he was a one-year guy, and he's gone and hasn't returned. So there's a lot of turnover there, but somebody's going to have to do that dirty work. And Josh Martin is a guy who loves that dirty work, so we know he's cool. But we got to find some other guys to move in and to fill those spots on Brant Boyer's special teams.
All right, and closing out with the DBs, and of course Tremaine Johnson, a huge signing for the Jets to go along with Mo Claiborne, bringing him back for a year. Buster Skrine turned it on in the second half of the season, so that's great news for the three there. Another position like the wide receiver position that has been transformed in the last couple of years. But the big battle at corner is going to be everybody else because Justin Burris has struggled. Robinson, there's some complaints from Jet fans in the media about bringing him in with his off-the-field situation. And He didn't necessarily look good. I wonder whether or not he's better at corner or safety. And then you've got the 2 6-rounders from last year, Derek Jones and Jeremy Clark, who now this is it. Now's your time to prove whether or not you're going to actually get some playing time. You basically redshirted last year. And then the Jets also used a 6-rounder this year on Perry Nickerson. So there's a lot of depth, a lot of different, and I didn't even mention Dow Roberts. So there's a lot, as far as corners, there's a lot of guys that are battling for like a couple of spots.
Absolutely. I think you sketched out really well. In the yearbook, I'll give you a sneak preview. My headline we did a special on the DBs and its position of strength, which is interesting because it was not considered that to be that even when Revis came back. Obviously, the last year was not a position of strength for him, but now you've got Morris Claiborne and Trumaine Johnson, 2 excellent pros from other teams. They're now going to come here and play in the Jet scheme. And, of course, we have Jamal Adams and Marcus May, solid, first year. I don't know when the last time the NFL had 2 rookie safeties starting side by side, 16 games. That was phenomenal, and they both did very good. They weren't perfect, but they were learning on the job, and they're going to be even better this year. Jamal Adams is a fiery, forceful guy. So I kind of think this is a position of strength this year. But as you say, that last position, the nickel position, Buster Screen is here, and he plays well. But I know Jet fans, a little hot and cold on him. So he's going to be pushed by all the guys you mentioned. And Perry Nickerson, I kind of like what he brings to the table. 6th-rounder, yes, but after I think it was a freshman year injury, had 4 very solid, very productive seasons at Tulane.
Yep.
And he's going to come in and show what he can do. And I think he's going to make that position, the cornerback position, and especially the backup and nickel positions, even better.
Do you think who do you like better from what you saw last year? Who has a better upside, Derek Jones or Jeremy Clark?
I wouldn't be able. I would not be able to give you an answer.
Just didn't see him enough, huh? Yeah.
No, I did not see him enough,
yeah.
And I'd say maybe Jones. I think Jones played a little more, if I'm not mistaken. But I think they both have something to show this year. They got to show they belong.
Yeah. Clark, before the injury, he was a guy that a lot of people thought could have been a very intriguing, maybe even a middle-round pick last year. But then the injury occurred, so he also has some potential upside that we need to keep an eye on. And then finally, safety, you got J.J. Wilcox that was signed at the last minute due to the Rontez Miles injury. And I'm also intrigued to see if now, with some more possible playing time, whether Doug Middleton and Terrence Brooks can add back there as well, because they're also adding some pretty good depth. So what about those guys?
Yeah, they are adding depth, and we know that both of them can play special teams. And, not that it's indicative of a whole lot, but Doug Middleton had that very heads-up and exciting play in the last game of the 2016 season, recovering an uncovered kickoff in the end zone, which I think was our first special teams touchdown of any kind since probably 2013. So Doug Middleton, even though he didn't play last year, was sidelined, but he's back, and he's going to bring some depth and some knowledge of the position and the scheme. And Terrence Brooks, last year in the preseason, he said, I'm really happy to be with the Jets. I wanted to show somebody that I can play and have somebody believe in me, and the Jets are doing that. Well, the Jets, he was one of their first off-season free agent re-signings, so he's back, and he showed a little bit of what he can do with some interceptions in, I think it was the Miami game, wasn't it? The fake punt and then the late defensive interception.
Yeah, he made a couple plays,
he's got some gamer in him, too, so I really like the position a lot, and as you say, that one spot, the backup corner spot, maybe is one that's an unknown at this point, but I do believe that they have the players who can solve it.
All right, Randy, that is a wealth of information to get started. Everybody to pay attention to this 3-day minicamp. We're going to definitely be back next month for our training camp preview, and that's going to be a lot more in-depth, and we're going to have many more shows through training camp and the preseason to go over the positions and the players on the Jets, not including Kari Santos, the new kicker, and Lachlan Edwards, who improved last year, hoping to keep improving at punter. as well for this year. So we'll be on top of that as well. And by the way, we can follow you on Twitter at rlange. That's Lange Jets. And great to have you on board, Randy. Look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Great, Greg. Thanks, and great to talk some Jets football with you. Thank you.
Yes, it's a great time to do that. All right, that's Randy Lange, again, senior consultant and reporter for NewYorkJets.com here on Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. Jan Levine will be with me again as well real soon. So we've got a lot of these shows coming up. But this was a good opportunity for us to bring Randy on board. Mini camp starting tomorrow for the next 3 days, so pay attention to that. Go over to NewYorkJets.com. Again, Jets 360. Check out Randy and everybody over there and how they're going to update you on what's going on for the Jets over the next 3 days. And we'll be back next month for a training camp preview. Next time that you'll hear from us at ourlads.com. For Randy Lange, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time on Jets Uncovered on the Ourlads Football Radio Network.